Caroline said she's on her way back in. We are very happy today to have Lucas Finn as our guest. She will be talking to us about tech-centered design, crafting inclusive XR experiences. So looking forward to that after we get through these announcements. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, first and foremost, the Immersive Learning Research Network, who hosts us here in our beautiful XR Women Hall. It's been a lovely place to meet over the past 2.5 years, and I, for one, am very fond of it. And the iLearn campus is on the Verbella platform, and they have been good allies to us, so we thank us as well. And Frame hosts our XR Women Museum, which, if any of you have never been there before, please visit. So note that we are recording. So if you are not speaking, please keep your microphone muted and then unmute it. I believe it's just the number one, or for some people, or the space bar that you can use to temporarily unmute if you want to do that. There's some other tips here, including that reminder that your avatar voice messages may be recorded and shared on social media. So just be aware of that. I hope you all have some XR Women merch. Please, please get some if you don't. I need some more XR Women merch. I'm going to get some myself. And if you're not on our Slack channel, on our Slack, send us a note in the chat here and we will give you an invite. Oops, skipped over that all important slide. Congratulations to the award winners for the XR Women 3rd Annual 2023 Awards. Athena Demos was the winner of the Trailblazer Award. Woohoo! Yay, Athena. And Deirdre Lyons, who's here with us today, was the winner of the Innovation Award for her work in immersive theater.
Thank you.
Truly a pioneer, establishing this new genre that never previously existed. And wow, if you ever get the chance to see Gumball Dreams, I highly recommend it. Deirdre, do you all have any performances that are available now or any that are upcoming that people could attend?
We are currently developing stuff,
Okay.
so it's going to be a while. But follow us on our newsletters and socials, and we'll let you know when we're coming up with shows.
Okay, can you drop a link to some of your social stuff in the
Will do.
chat? And
Yeah,
yeah, so the Ferry under Ferryman Collective, right?
that is correct.
Okay. And Paige Danzinger won for Real World Impact for the work that she has done, especially in Horizon with Women in Horizon and using VR to help those who have suffered from abuse to heal. And to find new skills and new ways to express themselves. Other things too. If you haven't ever gone to her events or the Women in Horizon spaces there, I recommend that you check them out. She does some very cool things. And here are some AWE moments, some of the photos. I love these so much. And Jenna, there you can see us doing the power pose in that one photo on the bottom left. Yeah, some really great photos, and we're gonna have to figure out how to share them even more widely. Here are some more. I absolutely love this picture of Wendy in the middle. That is so awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, Caroline was at the event, but she had other duties, and we don't have any of her here. But I'm sure we have some others elsewhere. Okay, so Sophia, is she here?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay, you were going to speak to this slide, right?
Yeah. So I had the opportunity and honor to help Sonia in her programming for the event, and so I was helping to manage the tracks that were going on throughout the days, and so I have this global kind of view of the topics that were being discussed at the event. And so these are a couple that I wanted to call out. I'm just gonna zoom my screen real quick. Okay, so there's a lot of obviously like topics revolving around Web3 and Web 3.0 and kind of how it is helping to grow the concept of the metaverse. Obviously, that included a lot of talk about blockchain and AI and the convergence of these technologies and new use cases and streamlining processes and those types of things, and kind of ideating on all of that stuff. Talking about obviously WebXR, which is a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, and talking about kind of the difference in application and deployments versus WebXR and native XR, and just talking about accessibility and equity within all of those mediums and how do we achieve that, and obviously everything in between, talking about plenty of use cases across different industry sectors. There's a whole track on XR enablement technologies, which included, everything from haptics to optics and LiDAR technology and depth sensing and all of that stuff to just and robotics. Even there's robotics there as well. I forget the dog's name. What is that robotic dog's name? You guys
the
will
Boston
like
Dynamics one.
Boston Dynamics. Yeah,
Yeah,
Boston Dynamics.
Oh, it's called Spot.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what they were talking about in terms of the how that like integrated into the theme of XR, but even that was there on one of the panels also. So there was lots of live demos and stuff like that. And I did want to point out, and I'm sure the people that attended AWE could see this too, the conference is growing more and more every year. And specifically this year, I counted about 165 sessions just in the track, or 165 or 168 sessions just on the tracks, but then there was a whole main stage of sessions going on also, and then lots of special events. I know the Kronos group and the Metaverse Interoperability group had a whole set of sessions upstairs that were separate from the AWE conference schedule. And then the expo floor had like 3 times as many exhibitors as I've ever seen at an XR conference. So I think that's just indicative of how much this industry is growing, and then also the different types of speakers and audience members as well, are more of like the users and the clientele of these technologies also. So you saw the FBI, Air Force was there, and Lowe's was there. I'm sure many other companies were there that were kind of more on the client user side, which is great to see that they're getting more involved in the industry there. That's kind of my highlights there. If anybody else has anything to add, that's kind of my key takeaways from the conference.
Great summary, Sophia. Thank you. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure that we could probably talk about it for a long time. I wish we could, but let's move on because we have other things to get to. Does anyone have any new exciting news? We're going to talk about Apple in just a moment, but does anyone have anything else that's super exciting? Share? Nope. Okay, moving on. Oh, I forgot to ask whether we have anyone who is here for the first time, but and Vanessa is here for the first time. Vanessa, would you like to unmute and give a brief introduction to yourself?
I can, yeah. Hi everyone. It was so nice to meet you all or many of you at AWE. It was my first AWE. I didn't go last year, although my company, Croquet, that I co-founded, actually won one of the awards last year for Startup to Watch. I'm an engineer, so I actually built Croquet. is basically a multiplayer technology, and we build various applications on top of it. For example, a VR experience, a metaverse builder that we call Microverse Builder, because it's tiny private metaverses instead of the big, scary public metaverse. And I have, like, my VR experience goes back to the late 90s, where I was building stuff on like SGI workstations, and we had a cave. I was at the University of Michigan for my postgrad, building stuff in Inventor and Performer. So yeah, I'm a software engineer. I got a engineering doctorate in the early 2000s. Have been working in Alan Kay's group for almost 20 years. And then in 2018, we founded Croquet here in Los Angeles. In my 40s, which is a few years ago now, I came out. I'm a trans woman. That's the short of it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Yay, trans rights. Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
glad to have you here, and we'd love to have you come present sometime too. So yeah, we will talk about that. and if you all haven't had a chance to try Croquet yet, I hope you do get the opportunity. Sometimes if you ever get to go to any of the portal crawls that happen through the Metatraversal community, the last time we went into Croquet there, and had a few other opportunities to try it. Very cool. And you can code from within it, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Really interesting. Okay. So we have a slide here about how you are using AI. Julie, you put this together, and I don't know if there's something in particular that you want to say about each of these resources.
Yeah, no, again, I'm not the master of knowledge here, just kind of pulling up what caught my eye and thought would be helpful. So I'll drop the links in. There's some tools for summarizing a research paper. I thought that article was really interesting. What are GPT best practices? And then we've got the, it's funny when you look up AI and then you try and look behind it, there's good things and there's bad things. Some things are taking over the world and other things are like helping healthcare. So one thing I picked out today was just what will stop AI from flooding the internet with fake images, right? So, and then managing the risks of generative AI. And this is a term that's kind of come into my site. So I'm going to do a little bit more research myself into this stuff, and I'll drop the links in. And again, we have a Slack channel. If anybody's interested in being in that, there's a group of us that keep on throwing articles and stuff in there, and links to learn more about how AI is changing things. And one thing I noticed, like the conversations around AI, everything was at AWE last week it was peppered in with AI. So we need to learn more about these different resources that we have coming at us. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Whoops. I skipped over one too fast there. The Apple News. I'm sure many of you were watching and know about the Vision Pro. Julie put together some slides here for us. And talking about the different OS systems. At first, I think some people were concerned that there didn't seem to be a WebXR play, but apparently there is. And the device itself looks super cool.
And can I just jump in, Karen, for one
Yeah.
second? I didn't put tons of slides. There's actually going to be a link. As soon as I finish talking, I'll bring all the links in for you guys.
Okay.
But one thing I found interesting about this presentation and about not just the headset, so keep the headset out of the conversation for a bit. If you look at the rest of their presentation, one thing I found interesting was that they were getting everybody ready to identify more with an avatar and communicate with each other using FaceTime and the avatar piece. And then also, there was a few other things that just using the word spatial computing, and I've always been, in the promotion of people having to learn about spatial awareness and spatial design, and here we are, right? So Apple did a good job yesterday in setting everybody up in the next year on mass of getting used to their avatar, getting used to communicating in a deeper way into the computers, and then they save the headset for last. So, that's like above and beyond and stuff. These other pieces are going to be critical to the adoption of somebody putting this headset on their head. So
Yeah.
anyways, that's my intake on kind of what's going on, but there's a lot of noise out there, and it's really interesting to hear everybody's perspective.
Yeah, and I see Tamara's talking about all the reviews. Definitely the talk of the town, so to speak. And yeah, it's really interesting to see these. I had not seen these images that you shared, Julie, with identifying the different cameras and the LiDAR scanner and all of that. That's really interesting stuff. Again, just a reminder, not just for this slide, but in general, and with maybe Sophia's earlier, you can go to the top of your screen and there's a screen zoom option there. You can also use the magnifying glass to the top right of any of the three screens up here to view them larger so that you can read, because sometimes things are quite small. Okay, moving on, some upcoming events. Right, the iLearn conference, the in-person one, this is more the academic research conference, will be taking place in San Luis Obispo in less than 3 weeks. And at the same time, Collision is happening in Toronto. That's usually a massive event and is more general tech, but definitely has an XR element there. And I know that Julie and Alan will be there representing Metaverse. August 30th to 31st, AWE Asia. Wow, that would be super cool. And AWE Europe in Vienna is, I believe, in October. And there's some others listed here too. Again, you're probably going to have to zoom in on this screen in order to see them all. But a lot happening.
Karen, I'm going to drop the link right now. I know I'm dropping a lot of them, but that one that I just dropped will take you to a site that provides you globally with a bunch of stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for those resources.
Julie, I was able to catch your Juicyverse presentation because you guys did it right when I was doing my panel on Friday. And I want to say that was an amazing presentation. Big kudos, big applause to you and Alan.
Thank you so much. Actually, I just saw it came out, so you can actually watch it yourself. And that was the other big piece about AWE. I think we were talking about this earlier with a smaller group, but all of the videos from last week that were recorded from every single talk are now live on YouTube. So if you want to go and watch what we watched last week, they're all on YouTube. Just pull up AWE 2023. I don't think there's no categorization. You just have to know what you're looking for or somebody that you want to see that presented. So yeah, thanks, Lacey. I appreciate it. Yeah, we were on stage talking about Juicyverse, and I can drop the link in. And anybody else who wants to drop the links in, you can do it here or on Slack.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I would suggest sharing your talks, the links to your talks on Slack, because I'm sure there are plenty of people who have not been able to see it. We need to move right along. I want to allow plenty of time for Lucas's presentation. Next week, we're going to have Luciana Jaluk, who will be speaking to us about the dimensions of presence in metaverse experiences. Luciana works for Accenture, and she came to our anniversary 100th event celebration in New York in November, and had some augmented reality artwork that she shared with us there. So we'll be interested to hear her talk. And then we are going to have, I think it was called BattleBots AI, Battle of the Bots. Anyway, Ivo Haining is going to be hosting that. We will confirm and we'll share that news with you, but it's probably going to be on a platform called Simulacra. So stay tuned to that. And as usual, we'll meet here and then go there so that those who show up and, haven't been there before can find their way. And then we have Yolanda Barton. Ooh, I love that image. So good. Unapologetic tech. Yes, we're all about that. And I just would like to welcome, because I see that Better World is here. Paige Dansinger, another one of our award winners. Congratulations.
Paige, woo!
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this new lineup of speakers.
Oh, yeah.
And to be here with my XR women.
Yes, wonderful. And it was such a great time. So great to spend time with you there at the conference. All right.
Thank you.
Now,
thank you to all XR women. I'm super inspired by this and laying new ways of creating real world impact that I hope to share with XR women and include you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. We're so proud to have you and Deirdre and Athena as members of our community. All of you.
You're all the ones who inspire me, this room of people. So thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay, so now I would like to turn things over to Jenna, who will introduce our speaker for today. Thank you, Jenna. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. And as always, it was so good to hear about all of the connection that happened at AWE last week. I'm pretty sure most of the people in this room attended. I can feel the energy and like the joy and the excitement that came off of that. And it's wonderful to be in a room full of individuals that have it. So I'm super excited to present today Lucas Thin. Lucas actually was at AWE last year, and we met her at our XR Women sort of after party event that we held. And I was really, really drawn to Lucas's excitement and energy, and then also her focus on the design process and her passion for discussing it. I will say Lucas is right now about to graduate from the Art Center College of Design in LA. So hey everybody, she's available and she's got some great skills. So without further ado, Lucas.
Yeah, thank you so much for helping me, I guess. So let me just share my screen again because I was opening up the links that were sent in the chat and kind of like broke the screen. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes,
We can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to introduce to everyone, so I'm like what Jenna said, I'm Lucas. I am a design scholar associate for Design Singapore Council right now. They fund me to come to LA to basically learn and stuff, pay for my tuition and living allowance. I got started into XR like right after the AWE last year that Gina was mentioning, where I met her. That I was already interested in XR, but wasn't really able to, I guess, be in the industry that knee deep. So it was thanks to XR Bootcamp and their scholarship at that time that led me to learn Unity and be able to prototype more and take my ideas to reality in a way. And one of the projects that happened after that was this project that I'm about to share that we created in MIT Reality Hack. And my teammates are really happy with the idea, so they're trying to make this into a reality by making it a startup. But I'm trying to explain like the new way of tackling design especially in AR/VR field or UX design in AR/VR field. So if any of you know about UX design, you could you know what I'm talking about, but I'll try to break it down so that it's generalized, that everyone else can benefit something from this talk. So yeah, that's my introduction. I'll start with the presentation now. So this whole presentation about designing emotionally engaging XR came from that project that I mentioned with the reality hack, which we call Band Vision. But before diving down into like the approach and how we built it, I wanted to share first of what exactly it even is. So what Band Vision does in terms of technology wise is to use AI and object detection model specifically to translate object properties into sound properties, which lets you basically translate landscapes into soundscapes. To explain this, look at this image first. What you will see is a table, a remote, wall, and a plant. When I told you to look at the image, I also want you to like try to look at it and feel what you feel from seeing an image like this. So what Band Vision does is that when it notices an environment in your field of view, it uses object detection model to identify these common object category. Afterwards, it basically provides audio sources into each of these places an audio anchor in a way on each of these different objects, and each of them have different sounds based on their own properties, which I'll explain more later. But that creates this whole soundscape that I'll play right now. So that soundscape is what you'll hear when you're when you're using Band Vision after it have translated all the objects into audio property and assigned individual audio. That is the soundscape of all the audios coming and blending together. And our goal is to make it harmonious and pleasant sounding like what you just heard. So what we're basically doing is trying to convert the senses of sight into the senses of hearing. And in that case, we also study like how when you're looking at something, like just now, you will be just taking in the entire environment, but sometimes when you're looking at something like an object, you want to just focus on it. So we created something like a virtual cane with a raycast on a controller to let you point exactly at which object. You will get haptic feedback if there's an object that you pointed correctly to. But when you when you point the ray out to an object, you're isolating the object's sound so that you can focus on the object's properties in a way. That's what the remote control would sound like. And then sometimes when we look at objects, we don't just look at it, we sometimes want to observe it, like what is it actually? And to do that for hearing wise, it was pretty simple. When you're pointing a ray at the object and with a click of a button, you will be able to hear just a voice telling you what it is.
This is a remote.
So the goal is that once we can get all of these audio anchors in a way and have all these audio properties kind of talking about the general object properties, eventually people can build almost like an echolocation functionality, like ability for them to navigate the world. So the project was conceptualized in 2.5 days, and this is kind of important to share, mainly because what we're going to be talking about is the design approach later on, and the fact that this design methodology can be squeezed into 2.5 days or expand to any long you have for your project is something that I wanted to emphasize. It's not something just you need like 14 weeks to get through. So to speak about that, first I want to tell you about the UX design methodology for those of you in the room that don't know about it. How UX design methodology works is that basically you give your designers a brief and they do this thing called like user research, and that will help them define the scope of the project more, which leads them to be able to ideate better and create a demo prototype, and they will like test it with the users, and hopefully at the end you will give it to the developers to implement it. But most of the time what happened is that when you do this process, a lot of designers ended up at the test realize that their hypothesis about what user needs are is not right. So they go back from the step 2 and do this over and over again until they get something like a product market fit. And worst case scenario comes when they got all these testing done, and then especially in AR VR space, they will bring it to the developers for the developers to tell them like, hey, the hardware is not ready or the software is not ready, like this is not possible. And then you have to go back all the way to step 2 and redo this process over and over again until you get something right. So when you look at this kind of conventional UX design methodology, what the designers are basically doing is just defining a context so that it can fit a function and that provides the highest value. So an example of this would be like, if you look at the function of a web app or a mobile app or website, we've all been exposed long enough to know what they can do. And as UX designers, our job is, okay, like, what can I do with a mobile app that will bring me the highest value? And most of the time, there was a period of time I remember that a lot of people were trying to create Uber for something else. Like Uber for food is DoorDash, or Uber for task is TaskRabbit. Something like that, that is what UX designers ended up doing, is just finding out what other user needs are there that this function could solve. However, the problem with that in the AR VR context is that when we talk about function, we don't really know what AR, VR, and AI can even do yet. We are just at the beginning of what people call, with Apple coming out, the second stage of the era. Like it's not mainstream adopted yet. So we don't really know what this technology can allow us to do. Hence, how are we as designers trying to define a context without even knowing the function? It's like asking you to write without, like, while giving you a pen that you don't know how to use. So that's why me and my professor at my school, we were talking about this new methodology of technology-centered design or technology-centered research, which starts off by defining the function first before defining the context, that like use cases for the users, so that this will give the better fit. And this is a methodology of like what I used for my project. So what's the difference is that we start off from the brief, and instead of doing the research and then define, I put the implement to the second stage. So this is not saying that all the designers should be developers and stuff like that. All I'm saying is that when you get the brief, play with the technology as if you're a developer, try to figure out how to work with it, and then use that knowledge to define the scope further before doing your user research and everything else. So how this was implemented in our project of BenVision was that in the hackathon, one of my group mates, who is a AI developer, told me that he wanted to use object detection to assist vision impaired users. And from here, I was already given the technology of object detection model, and then who am I assisting, which is vision impaired users. But I wasn't having a proper context yet. So that's when we go into this implement stage, where when I was breaking down, like, okay, using like prototyping as a research tool, or just learning more about the technology of object detection model and playing around with it. My goal was to understand like what is the features and limitations, what can this do and what can it not do, and also asking questions like, how does object detection even work, and how is this different from other technologies? So for example, this is a summary of like what we did, in a sense of like comparing it with LiDAR meshes, which is what our competitor was using at that time, where we were talking about, okay, so the pros of a LiDAR is that you can detect edges, you can detect planes, you can create accurate spatial positions. But the cons of it is that you require some time to scan for users to go around, like scanning the room. And it's unable to identify like the objects as objects. It also requires LiDAR sensor, which is not cheap. And most headsets, except the Apple one and the Magic Leap ones, don't really have this sensor built in. So comparing that with object detection, firstly, it's real time in the sense that even if you are in a space for the first time, you don't really have to scan the space. There's also ability to identify common object categories, like this is a person, this is a table, this is a chair, and it only requires a camera. But the problem with that is that it requires extensive data set, requires GPU and CPU power, and does not really detect fast moving objects or occluded objects in that sense. So to define our brief, what we did did was to take the cons of LiDAR, meaning what LiDAR cannot do or bad at doing, and the pros of the object detection, and then combining it to create like a context where now it's more like use object detection model to assist vision impaired users outdoors. And that's when we go into the accessibility design and UX design of, or user research and UX design methodology, is really asking the question of like, okay, now that this is our context, define the context, the question to ask is, why do we go outdoors? And I want to emphasize this statement that I'm not saying why do vision impaired people go outdoors, but why do we, like you and I, people in general, go outdoors? And the answer that I came up with was, well, first we do need to navigate from one place to another. That's why we go outdoors. However, sometimes we go outdoors just to enjoy the beauty of outdoors. Remember the time that you book a hotel, like you paid, I don't know, extra $200 to get a better view, or that trip that you went for a hiking trip to see the landscape, and or any of those stuff where you're paying just to go outdoors, embrace nature, look at the beauty of life, and that makes us feel good. So that to us was already what was important when you talk about accessible design, that I feel as a designer we tend to forget when we get too knee deep on like functional, like how do we make things functional for people with accessibility. So I wanted to share a story of why this came to my mind and why this whole beauty thing is important. So my mom, this is my mom, she was born with polio, meaning like her leg is smaller, one side is smaller than the other. And one time I remember because I am not like the girliest of all, I'm like a butch in a way, but not really a butch at heart. And my mom told me to wear a skirt, and I didn't know why. Like, why are you constantly telling me to wear a skirt and like not letting me be me? But she told me a story that she wanted me to wear a skirt because when she was younger, she saw at the playground all these other girls that were running around, and they were wearing skirts, but she wanted to wear a skirt too, but she couldn't wear it because she was ashamed of her legs. And she knew that even if she wore a skirt, she would never be as beautiful as those other girls. So she wanted her daughter to at least try a skirt, just in a way like living out her dream for once. And that made me realize that people with disability, when you do user research, you're only finding out like what can they not do in terms of ability wise, but you're really not talking about what their emotional needs are. This is something that you can't get out of a typical UX research needs until you empathize deeply with it and think about it. And this is true for the same like case that how every human being in general, we really want to see beauty in ourselves, but also in nature. And this is also seen in Van Gogh, like a man who suffered so much in his life, and how he didn't paint what he saw, but he painted what he felt. So a quote that really resonated with me and this whole story is by Christopher Morley, that in every man's heart there is a secret nerve that answers to the vibrations of beauty. So in that sense, to me, or like what I want to share with designing for accessibility, is that to remember it's not just functional but emotional. There's no framework that I'm trying to share that will get you to do this, but I hoping that all of you will remember this fact when you're designing in the future, that it's really not only about ensuring that the ability is accessible, but also the entire experience of what being a free human is like is accessible, and that comes with the whole beauty part. So the next step that we go on to is to ideate, and what we ideated with was to use sound, mainly because sound, it creates emotional experiences for us. Some sounds are so beautiful that it sheds a tear in our eye. So how can we use sound not just for functional benefits of just telling you what this object is, but also bringing you that emotional sense when you're looking at something beautiful, or you're looking at a crowded room versus an empty room. And to do that, we used the sound. When we talk about senses, we have sight, smell, taste, touch, and sound, but most of us only focus on sight, especially in AR/VR industry, and we wanted to use sound for that sense. So pairing with me, it was an audio designer. She talked at AWE as well more about how we use sound, but for me to just go over briefly how we designed the sound was, instead of saying that, oh, a remote control sounds exactly like this, we created from a base of like there's a melodic sound and ambient sound. Melodic sound is attached to objects that have life, and ambient sound is objects that we call dead. So melodic, where you have the tune, but ambient is just this sound. And then we use pitch to describe the size of the object. If the lower the pitch, the heavier it sounds, and the higher the pitch, the lighter it sounds. That we found out that was intuitive for a lot of people to understand. And adding on UI SFX, if we identify that it's a chair, you can sit on it, it's interactable, so you can hear like a sound, like how you hear UIs when you're on your phone, like those clicking sound. And volume to do like spatial audio, like to tell you the distance, 3D spatial audio for direction. And the sound production was made in a sense of how do we get the sound to all work as a harmonious soundscape was challenging if you were to design like individual pieces of the sound together. So what she did was to basically design the soundscape first, then dissect it and take the individual parts from it. So it was like breaking apart a Lego. And only after that, we move on to the stage of demo, where we basically created, using Think Reality, run the AI model so that our developers can prove that the code side worked. And I created a demo prototype on Oculus Quest Pro, just to show like how the full experience would work if all the hardware was in place. So we also tested this experience with Chris McNally, who was also at AWE talking about designing for accessibility. He is someone with vision impairment, and we were honored to hear that he said this experience was the first experience that made him felt something, not just like, oh, this is usable or not, but something that really touched his heart. So to end off this whole presentation is, I just want to say, to remember these 2 points is to treat technology as a medium to explore and be creative with, whether you're a designer or creative, almost as if you're like how you do ceramics and how would you do like woodwork if you're a woodworker, how you would treat the medium as things that have limitations and opportunities as well. And also when designing for accessibility, regardless of the frameworks that Apple just provided and everything, is to really take a moment to pause and think about, what do I want these people to feel? What do I want to feel? And can I also pass on these emotions to them, not just what I want them to do? So that's the end of my presentation. And also just to shout out is really shouting out back to XR Bootcamp for helping me out, like to get to where I am today. And they're also creating like a design fellowship that I'm helping out on. So just like sticking it there. That's it. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
All right.
fascinating stuff. Yeah, really great.
That was really wonderful. Thank you so much, Lucas. I think that this is such an appropriate room to talk about your entire design process with. I'm pretty speechless. I feel like I have to like go through this presentation again just to continue sort of absorbing it, because it's such great information.
Thank you.
I guess what we can do now, we have about 10 minutes left before we can take a group photo. Does anybody have any questions for Lucas after this awesome presentation?
Yeah, I have a UXE question, Lucas. Thanks for the presentation. This was awesome, and there's so much good stuff in here. But one of the things that spoke to me was more of a logistical issue, because I do UX design. So I pricked up my ears when you were talking about kind of reinventing the usual process that we go through when we usually hit research right away. So I do a lot of the research side of things, and you were talking about how we could actually approach it from a technical and a developer perspective first. And I think you were talking about to do that, to look at what is technically possible before we even go into the research. But could you talk a little bit more about that step?
Yeah, so basically it's not like we're forgetting the research, it's just that I reorganize it in a way that would be more understandable. So what we're talking about is more like to do technology-centered research first, in a way, use like prototype something, or similar to how when we start UX research, we ask like what are the assumptions and what are the questions we have about this user or like this problem that we're trying to solve, doing the same exact methodologies but on technology. So asking the questions of like, okay, what do I know about this technology and what do I not know that I can maybe research or read a paper on. Maybe I can like get hardware, or maybe I can just do some like basic prototyping and test it out to see like, oh, because what happens with a lot of UX in the end is that, at least in our school, the students tend to overestimate what VR can do. So they keep creating this idea of like, oh, we're gonna have this tons of screens in front of our face and like gigantic screens like what Apple show, and how that's gonna be like, or they create like really giant concepts that are not proven and grounded. And also it kind of limits people, because when you're a 2D designer going to 3D, the most you can think about is what Apple showed, which is that, oh, we're gonna have these giant 2D screens in space. But the whole point of this technology center research is like to really dig deep on what the technology can do. So an example would be instead of starting off like, oh, putting 2D UI into a 3D world, just think about like, oh, what are these controllers? They are just trackers and they are using your body as a movement or input. In that case, can I create spatial triggers instead, where if I take a step to my left, will something else pop up? Can I anchor 3D models in a certain place and then interact? Like if I anchor them and if I move the object, will that trigger something? So you could be more creative if you start to look at technology mainly as just a medium first before thinking about the UX. And a lot of issues that happen with UX is also that you have to go through a lot of iterations to get the research to define a scope. Like you might go deep into the user problem and then realize that you have this problem, you have this solution, and then afterwards when you pass it to developers, that they're like, this is not going to work out. So the good thing about doing technology-centered research first is to define the scope down, like how we define it from indoor to outdoor. Because if we were to just target like helping assisting visual impaired users without defining the context, we wouldn't really be as deep in our insights, if this makes sense. So yeah, it's really just to add on like an additional tool to your research set to just treat technology as how you would have treated like your users and like the industries that you were helping to solve, and that would already give you a lot more insights to what it can and cannot do before defining more. Yeah, I hope this answers the question.
Yeah,
I
it
have a quick
does, and I
question.
think
Oh,
that's
sorry.
totally valid. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think having that, like, research is definitely a team sport, right? And the more diverse people you can get into it, the better. So 100% agree with everything you said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hi,
ahead.
Lucas. Thank you so much. That was so interesting, and I'm so excited about the work that you do. I have a question, but I also wanna. I'm a teacher and a media psychologist, so I'm gonna push back on you just a little bit, only because you said something that's gonna get you into hot water if you're trying to get funding. Earlier, you said that we really don't know what this technology does for people. We do. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of research articles out there, a lot in open source. And I just want to, sorry for the unsolicited advice, but I would recommend to you that you might actually look at some of that research, because actually it's really going to help you get the funding. You know, if you can bring in the research that's already out there that's showing you how amazing this technology is, because it's out there, it's been happening since the 90s, that's just going to add strength to your pitch and help you to get that money. So my question for you is this, and I'm sorry, I feel like if I had more time to be with your project, I would. This might be a dumb question, so forgive me if it is. I'm wondering if there's a market for this for people who are blind, and if you thought about that, your team, and thought about bringing it to that market. So thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think what we're currently doing is that we got some people in XR Access that are interested to test it out further, and we're hoping to also ship it mainly for people who are vision impaired and also people who are blind, those with like zero vision. That is our hope and aim. Regarding thank you for the advice on like the way I phrase stuff, because I get how much miscommunication that created. What I was mainly talking about is that wasn't saying that the technology is new in a way. It's just that there is no like proper standardized design principles or use cases that have been created for AR VR that is mainstream. So unlike human-centered design principles from Apple or web design principles, we don't really have that right now for AR VR as of yet, because even as designers in this space, we're still trying to find what is that use case, or like a lot of people talk about what is that one killer app that's gonna make this mainstream. And because of that, also headset manufacturers are also creating different new technology, whether that's haptic gloves with different type of haptics, or whether that's adding in different sensors, or different, like Apple adding in a lot of cameras in their and 3D camera abilities, because it's still very much evolving, and with every new hardware added into it, it changes what you can design for it. So that's why I would hold back. The whole point of that conversation is mainly targeted towards people who feel like that AR VR already have a standardized things to create for, or like things to follow, when in reality I still feel that it's a very wild west where we can still be creative as long as we know where we are, in a sense. Like maybe today, like using, as you said, doing literature reviews to learn about research in the 1990s and how we get to where we are today, and what it really seeing what the future potential might be before limiting ourselves with, oh, this is, we need to follow XYZ design principle or procedure, and we can only design 2D like interfaces in VR, or this will never work. Like there's too much conversations about that in the XR, not UX design world that I came from. That's the main reason why I was saying that.
Thank you so much.
All right, and we have a question in the public chat from Helen. Oh, I see that you already answered it. Never mind.
Yeah, we had a sound designer luckily at that time to join us. She's amazing. She's working at Valent Studios for sound production, and she was the one that really was able to create the sounds. We were discussing how do we connect the technology of what, if we use object detection model example, I can categorize it as a table, whatever, but then thinking about how tables are usually heavy, so hence we can add on additional object properties, or like dissect these objects into basic properties that she can convert into sound. So I was working hand in hand with her to design the audio library, or like at least how it worked. But then she designed how it sounded like, and yeah, it was amazing to hear how she got these soundscapes, and I hope you guys enjoyed those small demos of it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I feel like it would almost be just as amazing to have a presentation from each member of the team with their own perspective on, you know, what they brought into it.
Yeah.
All right, any more questions? No. Oh, Helen, go ahead.
With sound design, is that something that they're teaching in school around AR, VR, XR, or is that being taught, self-taught through experimentation?
So our sound designer is a professional sound designer. So, but for me to design, thinking with like a sound first was more self-taught. I was just thinking about how I could how I could pass on emotions of like what I see. Cause how I got this is because I was in MIT Reality Hack, and that was the first time I visited Boston. And when I was walking outdoors, of just like thinking about why am I even outdoor? And then I started to see this Boston like landscape in a way, with all the tall buildings and the cold weather. It made me felt like this really serene feeling, and I was thinking of how would I pass that on to people who are vision impaired, and that made me think about sound, and that led us to this discussion. And she told me like sound have these properties, and I told her, okay, objects have these properties, how can we connect them to the different sound properties, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and that's so it kind of was self-taught in a way.
So cool. So cool. Well, we are just about out of time. What I will say is that, Lucas, if you have time and if anybody else has time, you're more than welcome to stay in the XR Women Hall to continue asking questions and talking and just basking in the afterglow of AWE. But what I would love to do is to get everybody up here and for us to get a group photo with Lucas. And thank you so much, Lucas. I'm going to give you a little clap. /clap. Woohoo!
Thank you.
Nice work. Nice work today.
Thank you. Yay.
Such a good presentation. Yeah, but yeah, let's get everybody up here. What else we've got? We've got Julie and Karen.
Woohoo.
Let's see. Robin's coming up.
And so it begins.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's right. Get it, Louise. Nice. Nice, nice. All right. Is that everybody? Who's over there?
I didn't see you come in. Hi.
All right.
Everybody,
Camera
we need a page on the back wall. Which one do we want? It's just fine.
Yeah, the page crashed. Let's see. Let me try to refresh it.
What if we do the slide with Lucas's photo?
Okay, sure. I will pull that up. There we go.
Perfect.
Let me find a little slot here for myself. Okay, is camera